the other day someone asked me, is 30,000 VET, which is, by the way, VeChain's primary native token, they asked if that was good enough, or if that's considered good, I should say. However, I don't find that disappointing to me, even though I can't speak on anyone's behalf, and even though nothing I say is financial advice. And the reason why is because if, let's say, hypothetically, in a make believe scenario, VET went to the price of 30 cents, 30,000 VET at that point would arguably be worth 9 grand because 30,000 VET times 30 cents, 9,000. However, some people may be thinking, okay, who cares about 9 grand? Like, what? However, the way I view it is that it doesn't seem too bad because, at least to me, for instance, if I were to, let's say, out of that 9 grand, I just saved 4 grand. So that's not even 50%. Again, I just saved 4 grand out of that. And let's say I use that for the next cycle. And maybe during the next cycle, it does a 10x. It's going to depend on a lot of scenarios though. But let's say in a make believe scenario, that does a 10x. That 4 grand that was saved becomes 40 grand. Doesn't mean it will do that. However, if it, let's say, becomes 40 grand, let's just think about how that is actually arguably kind of a lot, because a lot of my friends that I know out there, they don't have 40 grand in their savings account, let alone for their portfolio or something like that, because many of my friends out there, they prioritize traveling, they prioritize eating out, and prioritize having very expensive car payments for a car which, in my opinion, is just way too expensive for no reason. So that nowadays, at least to some of my friends out there, it doesn't seem like that's something that is hypothetically easily sort of attained in a sense. I don't see it that much. So then when people like to say, oh, if it's not this or that, I just don't really think that it seems like such a bad thing. I get it. Some people out there want to look for a certain amount or this amount. And of course, it's going to different, or should I say be different in a case by case basis. However, for me, it's not more so about me worrying about what someone else has. It's more so me working with what I have instead of, again, focusing on what other people have. Because for other people out there, they may think that 100 grand is their, like, standard. Or some people may be thinking, oh, it must be 50,000 VET or something. And then again, it's going to be different. However, for me, it's about working with what I can have instead of what other people have. So for me, it's all about consistency and just being able to dollar cost average hold and then just wait, because I treat this journey like a marathon. It's not a sprint to me. So I'm just consistently just, again, dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting over a period of time, and not necessarily focused on the exact moment in time to acquire, if that makes sense. So I'm just more so kind of accumulating on a consistent basis. However, when people like to ask, is 30,000 VET a bad amount? I wouldn't find that bad personally in my perspective, even though I can't speak on anyone's behalf. Now, why wouldn't 30 cents surprise me when it comes to VET? It's because I like the fundamentals when it comes to VeChain. Like, for instance, if we take a look at VeChain, what is it primarily focused on? It's focused on something called supply chain management. Some people may be thinking, who cares about that market? Like, it's not that popular. I get it. It's not as popular as like AI or like, meme coins or blockchain gaming, for instance, or even let alone NFTs, which a lot of the hype kind of disappeared ever since 2021, but that still has a lot of more mainstream hype, I would say, as opposed to something like supply chain management, which is not really something that's talked about that much. But I do like it because if I take a look at, there's a lot of businesses out there that could arguably, I think, benefit from, let's say, maybe having a good supply chain management. So why not, right? I don't think it's such a bad thing. Like, also, for instance, if we take a look at VeChain, it has partnerships, or should I say has had historical partnerships, or whatever the case may be, with giants such as PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte, BMW, H&M. We take a look at LVMH, and of course there's many others. So I find this very impressive. Nonetheless, when it comes to something like VeChain, I don't find it as such a bad project, and some people out there like to say, oh, it's not really doing much. Well, we also have to consider that when it comes to something like VeChain, we take a look at what they're doing with UFC, like for instance, also Power Slap. However, even besides that, when people take a look at the VeChain Thor blockchain, this is sometimes a point where people are like, this doesn't have the popularity of like a Solana, for instance, or like, a BNB chain, or let alone like an Ethereum or a Cardano or something like that. I'm totally aware of that, but I still don't think that the VeChain Thor blockchain is such a bad thing because, for instance, the VeChain Thor blockchain is allegedly known for its rock solid reliability. Now, what do I mean by this? We've seen historically something like Solana at one point allegedly experience 8 different network outages in just a time span of a year. That's nearly once a month at one point for a year. Now, granted, I don't see those type of problems with Solana, at least like in the mainstream now. But again, arguably at one point, that was kind of like what people talked about. So if we consider how the VeChain Tor blockchain ever since 2018 and zero network outages, that's very impressive. Again, it may not see the best activity out there, it's not the most popular, but in terms of reliability, I like that. And I think that's a major unique selling point because enterprises out there that, let's say, might want to improve their supply chain management or just, maybe work with VeChain one way or another anyways, they might want something that's reliable. Like maybe in the retail side of things, like probably doesn't really matter that much because people are like, oh, Solana's cool, BNB chain's cool. Maybe reliability is often a lower sort of thing that they not really, I would say, look for as opposed to like cool factor or being interesting. Totally aware of that. It's not like really a priority. However, again, for an enterprise, that may very well be. So I like the direction in which VeChain is heading. Keep in mind, before I continue on any further, VET, which is the primary native token of the VeChain platform, that's what I'm talking about. However, there is something else called VTHO, which is VeChain Thor Energy. And that's basically kind of like a gas token of sorts when it comes to VeChain. So I just want to mention that real quick. However, even besides that, if let's say VET were to go to the price of 30 cents, considering current circulating supply, market cap at that point would be around $26 billion. And that's around 11x from here. Now, it doesn't seem like too ridiculous considering how basically Dogecoin exceeded that market cap by around 60 billion back in 2021. And we've seen something like BNB nearly exceed that by like even almost 100 billion, right? Because if we take a look at BNB back in 2021, market cap was over 100 billion. So that's kind of crazy to think about right there. And now some people may be thinking, oh, around 11x, who cares about that? Well, what is Bitcoin and Ethereum going to do in the next 6 to 10 months? If Bitcoin went to 300 grand, less than a 3x from here. If Ethereum went to 10 grand, less than a 3x from here as well. So for me, I'm not saying that someone should do this or do that because I can't speak on anyone's behalf. But if I was given the option like VET, Bitcoin, or Ethereum, hands down, I'm going to be choosing VET in that instance. Now, of course, I don't only just hold VET, but I'm saying if I was only given those three options, I would say VET because Ethereum has already kind of done its thing. Sure, there might hypothetically be ways to go, but it's not like that much more. It seems like in the grand scheme of things in terms of percentage hypothetical price increase. So for me, this is what I'm going to be focusing on. And even if like, VET just went to the price of 15 cents, so that's like, around a 5x from here, give or take. Even at that point, I would still rather prefer that over Bitcoin and Ethereum for the next 6 to 10 months. But this is just my mentality. And with the way altcoins are heading as of right now, I do really like it. And I'm very excited. However, I do not know the exact moment in time VET is going to have that next leg up. The only thing that is within my control is myself. So I'm going to be dollar cost averaging, like I mentioned earlier in the video, holding and just waiting, and just preparing for a moment in time in which it does something. If I pulled up a price chart, drew some random triangle, drew a falling wedge pattern, the market's not going to care about that. It's not going to listen to me. So for me, it's all about just kind of staying consistent with the project that I believe in and just waiting for a moment in time in which it does something as opposed to anticipating the exact moment in time. It's just about preparation for me, and I'm staying patient as of right now. And that's pretty much about it. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'll greatly appreciate it. It's only the captain, and I'll catch you all in the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.